I don't really understand the business model either. You know, just pay a truck driver.
Welcome back to Landline Now. Aurora takes one step backward. An NTSB report highlights the need for more truck parking. We've got another nail in the advanced clean trucks coffin and more. It's been a busy week, so we've brought in reinforcements. Tyson Fisher and Mark Schremmer of Landline Magazine are here, as they are apt to do, to break down the biggest stories of the week. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start down in Texas with this situation with Aurora, which we have been talking about quite a bit over recent weeks. As people may know, they ramped up their deployment of autonomous trucks, taking a step forward, actually having fully driverless trucks hauling loads on Texas roadways. But they took a big step backward this week, Mark. Let's get people up to speed for those who may have not been following the news. Essentially, they are putting a human back in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Back to square one.
Yeah,
kind of.
Sort of. It's all very confusing, and so much has happened since their initial deployment on April 27th. So we're not even quite a month away from that, and we've gone from them hauling loads with sometimes somebody in the back seat with, and sometimes completely empty is the understanding. But now PACCAR, who they partner with, had requested that they put a human back in the driver's seat. If you remember, before this April 27th deployment, for numerous months, if not even more than a year, they had been doing runs on Texas with a person still in the driver's seat. They were mostly using the autonomous technology, but they did have what they called at that time a safety driver in the driver's seat. Assume at that point that that driver had the ability to take over the truck if need be in all of those situations. Now, Aurora is referring to this person that is now in the driver's seat, not as a safety driver anymore, but as an observer.
Yep, that's the word they're using, observer.
And I asked if that observer needs to have a CDL, and I have not gotten an absolute direct answer, but based off the answers that I've received so far, it's indicated that they believe no, that person does not have to have a CDL because they're adamant that the technology is still doing all of the work. That person's just there to observe. My question's about specifically why PACCAR then requested to have a person in the driver's seat.
Right.
It was, dare I say, gibberish.
Yeah.
It was just really not, it was so vague and clear. It just felt like, you ask somebody a direct question and then they start telling you about something sort of related, but it has nothing to do with and that's kind of, where we're at. So, and then, we reached out to PACCAR about their reasoning. They said no comment. They deferred all questions to Aurora. So it's just a really bizarre sort of situation that we have here. We apparently believe that there's a need to have a person in that driver's seat, yet they also can't do anything to take over the vehicle. So it's just bizarre. They say it has nothing to do with safety of having that person in the driver's seat, but also don't give a clear answer of why they need to be there then.
I hesitate to jump to conclusions, but I would imagine, just based on what we know, that PACCAR made this decision because they have concerns about the safety of this. They may not say that. Aurora definitely won't say that.
Yeah.
But reading between the lines, it seems like that's what we're talking about.
But that's the thing, is that, but now, if they're doing that and that person doesn't have a CDL,
what's the point?
Then what's the point?
Right.
And then that's, in some ways, it feels, that's more dangerous. I mean, And I understand when they were sitting in the back seat, it didn't matter whether that person that was in there or not. They were in there more for the purposes of that warning device regulation that we talked about putting cones out, or about, if there did have a blown tire, that they could, take care of that. Those sort of things of why the person was in the back seat. But this isn't just saying that every of their trucks needs to have a human on board. They're saying that they now need to be seated in the driver's seat. So you got a hold of the steering wheel, you're in the driver's seat, but you can't do anything about anything. So I think I said last week that I didn't want that backseat job. I also don't want the driver's seat observer job.
We've already put in your application, Mark. I'm sorry. It's on its way. This would be enough of a story in and of itself, but we also had, and Tyson, we were talking earlier about this, we also had that investor report recently that painted a picture of they're not in a good place, I think, based on the investor report that we got. I think that's safe to say. So when you put these two things together, it raises a lot of questions about where we might be headed.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we just don't know about. That investors report. So, on May 8th, when they had that earnings call where they were announcing everything, the co-founder, I forget his name, but the co-founder of Aurora announced that he was stepping away from the company and basically doing the same job over at General Motors. And that investors report had noted that other top leadership had recently left. We have this whole thing going on with PACCAR, which that investors report didn't mention that. In fact, I think PACCAR, they weren't quite ready to, or they didn't give the green light to use their truck for some operations. And so in photos that Aurora used, they removed the Peterbilt logo on the nose of the truck. There's a lot of weird things going on. And we don't know what, but what we do know is the observer is now at the front. We don't know why, what their purpose is. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, what is clear is that they're not really making their case as far as driverless operations, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to say we can do this safely and efficiently. And right now,
the evidence doesn't point to that.
It does not, no.
Again.
And also from a business model standpoint, because whether or not, maybe they could pay them less than a CDL holder or whatever, part of this whole point is they should be able to run basically 24 hours with nobody on board. There'd be lose that expense. But right now they're only running daylight hours. They can't go in high winds, can't go in light rain, and they still have to have a human on board for all of them. So I don't really understand the business model either. Just pay a truck driver.
As we said, we have reached out to Aurora. If we hear back, we'll of course tell their side of the story here. But again, we're kind of reading between lines. We're looking at what has happened and what they're telling us, and it appears that the pause button is being hit on at least the operations there in Texas. But we'll keep an eye on that. I want to get into this NTSB report on a 2023 crash in Illinois that happened along Interstate 70 near a rest area. There were 3 people that were killed when a Greyhound bus slammed into 3 trucks that were parked on a ramp. The NTSB conducted an investigation, Tyson, and not surprising to anybody in this room, but they found that a lack of truck parking was a contributor to what happened there.
Yeah, they did. And it's kind of a huge finding because, right off the bat, so first of all, it's worth noting that the primary cause was the bus driver's fatigue, right? And there's a whole history behind that. But, that aside, if there weren't trucks parked on the exit ramp to this I-70 rest area, this probably wouldn't have happened. So, the NTSB said, we have a problem here. That problem is a lack of truck parking, and that's why these trucks were where they were at. And so they kind of went into it. And one of the things they mentioned, and they were really put an emphasis on, was funding. That the reason why we're here is because we do not have enough funding, and that we haven't had enough funding. We have been asking for funding. I think one of the board members even pointed out that this is something that they have been talking about for, I think he said, 2 decades, and yet here we are having the same conversations, the same situations over and over again. One thing that they talked about multiple times was Mike Bost's Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, and then the chairman of the NTSB even pointed out that it is not customary for the NTSB to support or say anything about congressional funding for specific programs. But she said this is a unique situation, and although they are not formally endorsing any type of funding or whatever, strongly hinted at that maybe this is a thing that we should do, and I think pretty much everyone agrees on that. But yeah, one of the things they said was that maybe expand programs to include so we have different types of grants, for example. So we need to include truck parking in more of these grants was one thing. Another thing that they mentioned was something that the American Transportation Research Institute mentioned in their recent rest area parking study, which is federal funding can be used to build these truck parking facilities, but they cannot be used for maintenance and operations, which cost money every year. And so a lot of state DOTs aren't building the truck stops or the rest areas because they can't fund the maintenance of it. So NTSB is like, yeah, let's allow federal funding for that too. Also, and this was a kind of a curveball for me, they also suggested that maybe we look into lifting the federal ban on the commercialization of rest areas so that we can allow public-private partnerships to build these rest areas and make some money to basically fund, again, the maintenance of this. So a lot going on, but at the end of the day, high-profile crash, truck parking partially to blame, and now the NTSB is saying, all right, we need the money, let's do it.
I don't mean to be a pessimist. I just don't know what it's going to take for everybody to get on board and realize how big a problem this is. Congressman Boss, we've talked to him on the show. You've talked to him as well. And he understands this issue as well, if not better than anybody out there. And that's his thing. He keeps coming back to that. This is a safety issue. People are losing their lives because of a lack of truck parking. And this is a case that highlights that problem as well as any other out there. So I'm not sure what it's going to take. Hopefully we get action on this and we don't have to see more people killed needlessly because of, this lack of truck parking. It's not going to solve all the problems out there, but obviously would go a long way toward solving a lot of them. I'll get off my soapbox now. Real quick here, we've got a couple minutes, but a lot of action in the Senate this week. Tyson, you've been following Advanced Clean Trucks. I think we might have a final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, so the Senate recently just passed the Congressional Review Act resolution. Basically, they just killed the Advanced Clean Trucks Act and Advanced Clean Cars 2 and the Omnibus Rule. Basically, the Congressional Review Act resolution, it reversed the EPA waiver that's necessary to implement those California's vehicle emission rules. Again, Advanced Clean Trucks being included in that. Huge news. It essentially kills Advanced Clean Trucks for California and all the states that adopted it. It's going to be interesting what the aftermath is going to be because the method by which the Senate was able to execute this is, I would say, it's problematic. It is not. They did it legally. They did it, the way it's supposed to be done. But there's a lot of ethical questions on, how the CRA was executed and how this would mean for future CRAs later on down the road. But I think the takeaway for today, at least, is, according to the CRA resolution, Advanced Clean Trucks, Advanced Clean Cars 2, dead. I mean, in final, too.
And as we found out from states who have tried to implement Advanced Clean Trucks, at least, they've come back and said, this is not feasible. We can't do this. 40% of sales were supposed to be zero-emission trucks by the year 2032 in these states. And the states and manufacturers have both said, it sounds nice. It looks nice on paper maybe, but it's not going to happen the way things are right now. Tyson, Mark, we've covered a lot of ground. It's been a busy week. We appreciate you both coming in here. And if you want to check out Tyson and Mark's work on these issues and many others, you can go to landline.media for all the latest there. Gentlemen, we appreciate your time.